Why hello there, I'm B-Town and I make videos about games I love. Today we're going to be ranking every BioShock game from worst to best. I've been a BioShock fan since the first playable demo hit the Xbox 360. I remember that day like it was yesterday. My entire friends list was playing the game. It was incredible. It was brand new, it was exciting, and little did we know we were playing one of the best games ever made. Overall, the BioShock franchise is quite a masterpiece, but not every game is a classic. At the time of recording, there have only been 3 mainline games: BioShock in 2007, BioShock 2 in 2010, and BioShock Infinite in 2013. BioShock 4 is currently in development, but who knows when and if we'll ever get that game. Or Judas by Ken Levine and members of the original BioShock team, that's also in development hell. Because there are so few games in the franchise, this list is also going to be including every DLC. I'm going to try to remain pretty spoiler light, but it's pretty unavoidable, so consider this a warning. But let's jump right in. This game should definitely be left on the bottom of the ocean. The worst game in the BioShock franchise, BioShock Infinite: Burial at Sea Part 2. It's the only entry on this list I actively encourage you to avoid. If you love the stories of BioShock, the combat, the characters, no matter what you enjoy about this franchise, you will be disappointed by Burial at Sea Part 2. You play as Elizabeth from BioShock Infinite, and for the first time in the franchise, you actually get to be a female character, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, she's utterly powered down compared to Booker. They stripped everything from her personality, her powers. Everything that made Elizabeth unique in the main game is gone here in favor of a stealth-based combat system, which just doesn't work. The stealth mechanics are basic at best, but broken most of the time. This creative direction isn't as weird as it appears on the surface. A lot of the core creatives also worked on Thief at Eidos, a game that pretty much invented stealth mechanics in 3D games. The moment-to-moment gameplay is terrible. The overall story, which I really don't even want to touch on because it's so bad, it not only breaks the ending of BioShock Infinite, but it also completely sullies everything you love about the original BioShock in an effort to tie the two together. The creative intention to put Elizabeth at the center of the BioShock universe is totally fine and admirable, but the problem is they also destroyed her character in service of achieving that goal. The Burial at Sea version of Elizabeth is nothing like the person we fell in love with in the main game. She's spiteful, vengeful, kind of brutal, although it happens at the end of Burial at Sea Part 1. This version of Elizabeth is the person who came up with the plan to basically boil a little girl alive. It's a bad story that infects everything it touches, and it's got abysmal gameplay, so just skip Burial at Sea Part 2. It's terrible. BioShock 2: Protector Trials. This was the first DLC released for BioShock 2. It's a wave defense mode where you have to protect a little sister as she harvests Adam. Basically a way more intense version of the same mechanic you do in the main game. But the twist is, each one of these has a fixed set of weapons and plasmids that cannot be swapped out. It's frantic, it's fun, it's full of action. And BioShock 2 was overall a little more difficult than 1, so these can get pretty tough actually. There is a fair amount of challenge to them. One of the cool parts about this DLC is that if you obtain every star in the trials, you unlock a special gene tonic in the next DLC, Minerva's Den. That was called Master Protector, which increases the Adam harvested by little sisters by 40, which is a nice little bonus. Protector Trials are fun, if not a little forgettable. It's kind of a disposable DLC. It was released during the era where big AAA shooters were putting in like horde modes like Zombies or Horde mode in Gears of War. Totally worth checking out if you own the BioShock collection released in 2016. BioShock Infinite. Oh boy, here we go. I think BioShock Infinite is a good game, but it's a bad BioShock game. It's weird to say that as well because the current state of gaming, I would kill for an ambitious, thematically dense FPS game right now. Since Infinite came out in 2013, the shooter genre has been on a quality decline. Live services, always on, lifestyle, friend slop, franchise fatigue, annual release garbage. Of course, there are awesome games coming out every day, but a AAA title like BioShock Infinite will never be made again. It is a one of one. It is a unicorn. Infinite just doesn't stick the landing. Okay, I'd love to mention some good stuff before we dig into the negatives. The gunplay is the best the franchise has ever seen. The guns sound great, they feel great, headshots are really satisfying, but on the other side of the coin, The core combat, mixing weapons and powers, falls totally flat. I think that's mostly due to the extremely linear level design. Previous games featured large explorable hubs where you could get lost, find secrets, get immersed in the world of Rapture. Columbia feels like a theme park ride, quite literally on rails. Developers have said in the past that Disney was a huge inspiration, not only aesthetically, but also the world of theme parks. Basically, all you ever do in BioShock Infinite is walk forward, pop a few generic enemies, and then skyhook over to Tomorrowland to repeat the process. There are some interesting enemy designs. The Handyman is pretty cool. The Motorized Patriot is awesome. And Songbird's iconic, but for the most part, you're just going to be battling generic NPCs. The story of Infinite starts off strong, but loses steam about 2/3 of the way in. In the beginning, it clearly establishes the world, character, and stakes. The themes are very strong and handled really well, but the cracks start to show pretty early. I think it's hard to care about Booker at all. Even on your first playthrough, he's kind of non-existent. He's just kind of a generic player character. The more you learn about him, the more unredeemable he is. It is such a choice to make your main character a gambling, drunken, ex-Pinkerton war criminal who sells his daughter in one reality and is a racist, murderous prophet in the other. I'm all for challenging protagonists, but you have to give him something I can relate to. And it doesn't count if he feels guilty about doing something horrible. And then the other half of the BioShock Infinite duo, you have Elizabeth, who routinely gives me the ick. She comes across as scientifically manufactured to be sympathetic. The game is begging me to like her and fall in love with her. It kind of works, but it's also a little grating. Yeah, in the beginning, she's got the Disney princess vibe and she's pure of heart, but then they go and ruin that towards the end of the game anyway. Fucking justice for Daisy Fitzroy. So they do all this work to kind of set up the world and the characters, and then at a certain point in the game, the plot just taps out, defaults to quote unquote, everyone is bad, and then switches into some multiverse horseshit. Obviously, the first game is known for its plot twist, and they went back to the well and constructed the narrative around the twist for BioShock Infinite as well. And I have to give them credit, they were doing the multiverse way before the MCU and other media made that part of pop culture. But the way it's executed here is bloated, convoluted, and dare I say, pretentious. There's always a lighthouse. There's always a city. There's always fucking boredom. It's such a cop-out and easy way out of the plot. It honestly feels like the team painted themselves into a corner and had no other way out. And then ultimately, chose to kind of double back on their intention to make a totally different game and loop it into the world established in Rapture, the thing the fans really wanted to see. Graphically, it holds up reasonably, but I do think it's kind of the worst of the three mainline games. The bloom makes sense. We are battling amongst the clouds, but it's just obnoxious to look at for a long period of time. This game gives me a headache. Also, and this may just be a me issue, I have tons of collision problems in this game. Whether it's the weird geometry or Elizabeth's AI, I'm constantly bumping into stuff and getting mini stuck for like a half a second. It kind of drives me nuts. I could go on and on about Infinite, the things I like, the things I don't like, the things that are in the middle. It could honestly be a multi-hour video unto itself, but in the interest of time, I'm gonna move on. I do think it's a reasonable game. If you love BioShock 1 and you love BioShock 2, this might be the thing that you adore. It might be the thing you hate. It's very divisive in the community, but I do think it's worth your time to check out. It's not horrendously bad. It definitely feels more dated and like a product of its time than the other entries, which is another weird element because it's the most recent BioShock game to be released, even though that was like 12 years ago, which is insane to even think about. But yeah, I stand by my opening statement. BioShock Infinite is a good game, but a bad BioShock game. BioShock 1, Challenge Rooms. Let me just say the quiet part out loud. Yes, I put the kinda crappy BioShock 1 DLC above Infinite. I would legit rather play this. Challenge Rooms were a DLC release for the PS3 version of BioShock in 2008, then hit Xbox 5 years later in 2013, and didn't come to PC until the BioShock collection in 2016. It's exactly what the name suggests, they're just challenge rooms. One challenges you with taking out a Big Daddy without any weapons or damaging plasmids. The second is a puzzle type level where you have to save a little sister that's stuck on top of a Ferris wheel. And the last one is a series of combat challenges where you tackle different rooms, ultimately saving a little sister who's trapped in the center. There's not a lot to this DLC, but I do think they're fun and they deliver exactly what you'd expect. There's also enough variety and interesting combat scenarios to give it a thumbs up. BioShock Infinite, Clash in the Clouds. another DLC. Clash in the Clouds is a wave-based, almost kind of Call of Duty Zombies style mode. Each map is 15 rounds and you gear up between each of those rounds to get a little bit stronger. It's actually pretty good. The core gunplay is strong in Infinite, and this mode strips out all the stuff that doesn't work well in the base game, like any story whatsoever. There are 4 different levels and a hub world to explore. There isn't much to it, but I still think it's pretty fun. For hardcore players, there's also a set of what's known as blue ribbon challenges. You unlock a bunch of them naturally just by playing the game, but from what I understand, getting all of them is a real pain in the ass, so completionists beware. There is actually some hardcore difficult content inside of Infinite if you look close enough. BioShock Infinite, Burial at Sea, Part 1. Oh boy, this was a tough one to rank. There are things here I love and things here that I absolutely hate. Let me get my bias out of the way first though, and I don't normally thirst over fictional characters, but Elizabeth in Burial at Sea Part 1 actually bonkers. This little glob of pixels makes me feel weird emotions. If you've ever convincingly cosplayed this version of Elizabeth, my DMs are wide open. But my queen doesn't really affect the ranking here, I'm just saying. Burial at Sea Part 1 is a solid but fundamentally flawed BioShock experience. Personally, I think it's worth the price of admission just getting to see Rapture at its height. The DLC opens in Booker's detective office where he gets a visit from a mysterious woman that, of course, we know is Elizabeth. We are then taken to Rapture where we hunt for a missing girl named Sally. The setup is strong despite the fact that by the end it totally breaks continuity established in BioShock Infinite and rewrites lore from BioShock 1 and 2. I guess Ken Levine can do whatever he wants. Combat's strong, but nothing super surprising. It's based on Infinite, so everything kind of works. It's just weird how they port over all these mechanics and things from Infinite into the world of Rapture. They don't really fit together clearly, but who knows what multiverse we're in at this point anyway. The story is actually pretty serviceable and doesn't go completely off the rails until the very, very end. We don't need to get into the minutia here, but it's fucking stupid. Like what they do with Elizabeth is stupid. This Booker in general, he's the last Comstock kind of bullshit. Who cares? Shut up. The real star of the show, though, are the sections with Sander Cohen. And I love that he was canonically crazy before the fall of Rapture. That man didn't need Adam to get nuts. He was just loco from the beginning. I love it. He's such a strong character, and just getting more time with him is fantastic. The things they offer in this DLC are totally worthwhile, as long as you don't look too closely. If you actually start thinking about things, you're probably going to be confused and kind of disappointed. But if you just go with it and have fun, it's actually a pretty enjoyable DLC. Playtime's over. This list is about to get serious. We are entering into the top 3 BioShock games of all time. And next up we have BioShock 2. BioShock 2 didn't get a ton of hype or attention. The review scores were strong and it sold well, but the sentiment surrounding the game was just like, okay, this is more BioShock. And in a way that's totally accurate. It builds on the location, the atmosphere, and the core gameplay loop of the first game, but it really is so much more than people give it credit for. And the Rapture in BioShock 2 is way more worn and decayed. It feels like you could fall through the floor at any moment. Like the sea is slowly reclaiming the city, one drop of seawater at a time. The clunky combat of the first game was also greatly improved for the sequel. Now you wield a weapon in one hand and blast plasmids with the other. In the first game you had to switch between the two, and it really sucked during intense combat situations. As you would expect, there are new weapons, new plasmids, as well as a new suite of enemies added to the sandbox. The most important and impactful being the Big Sister. In BioShock 2, you play as a Big Daddy, and not just any Big Daddy, by the way. You're the first successful model, Subject Delta. So the designers introduced a new formidable foe worthy of tussling with one of the deadliest creatures in Rapture. Big Sisters are fast, agile, and ruthless. In universe, they protected the little sisters and attack the player if you interfere with them in any way. And it doesn't matter if you rescue or harvest the little sisters, the Big Sisters are always going to come and start a fight with you. Side note, if you harvest the little sisters, don't do that. That shit is just creepy. There's barely any gameplay incentive to do it. You're just doing it to do it. It's weird. Leave those little girls alone. Save them. They're adorable. The overall plot in BioShock 2 is also really solid and streamlined. After the death of Andrew Ryan in the first game, the city has been seized by a cultish group called the Rapture Family, headed by Dr. Sophia Lamb. Not to get too in the narrative weeds, but Lamb is a great antagonist and has a philosophically opposed viewpoint to Andrew Ryan. I also respect the creator's choice not to incorporate a big twist in the plot. Some people view that as a staple of the franchise, but a twist also loses its punch if you're looking for it the entire time. BioShock 2 is one of my favorite games in the franchise because of the gameplay, the amazing level design, and the engaging characters. It deserves a lot more respect. And this version of Rapture is populated by a few actually sympathetic people who are genuinely good and trying to survive in a terrible situation. It just makes the world feel way more alive, way more emotional. Where the first game was trying to activate your head, BioShock 2 is trying to activate your heart. A lot of times I found myself genuinely moved by the events of the game and the characters you meet. BioShock, the game that started it all, where a group of developers sat down and said, you know what kids love? Ayn Rand philosophy and genetic mutations. BioShock isn't just a great game. It's an important work of fiction. Addictive gameplay, rich themes, masterful world building, and good old-fashioned storytelling. But let's start at the end.
Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find it? Would you kindly get this?
There's been so much said about the twist. Personally, what I've always found amazing about this moment is how it subverted our expectations as a player. Up until BioShock released, we were all conditioned to kind of blindly follow the voice giving us commands in a game. The quest giver, the arrow pointing towards your next objective. There was really never a reason to question its authority until BioShock put a spotlight on that behavior. It's subtle yet powerful, and it's had a lasting impact on video game narratives ever since. And even the little details too, like the game hands you a bunch of supplies, leads you to believe you're about to have a big boss fight against Ryan, and then rug pulls you. This is one of the few game environments that sticks with me. The city of Rapture is the nightmare of my dreams. It feels super real, but it's not because of the graphics or level design. I think it's because of the writing. This horrible space is full of splicers corrupted by their own ambition, a plastic surgeon driven mad by Adam, and of course Sander Cohen, a sadistic artist who escaped the restraints of the surface to pursue his gruesome endeavors. Every detail of the world and the gameplay kind of ladders up to create a singular vision of Rapture. The gameplay and combat is also really good, if not a little bit clunky by today's standards. Resource scarcity forces the player to consider each encounter really specifically, especially a battle with the Big Daddy. It's not a straightforward shooting gallery. You need to prep, plan, and plot an attack where you have the advantage and can maximize the use of your plasmid. The level design in BioShock is one of the best parts of the game. The structure of the story has you visiting different areas of Rapture, each one an expansive hub world full of secrets and upgrades and a fixed set of objectives that you have to accomplish before you can progress. Straight up, Fort Frolic is one of the greatest video game levels of all time. The mood, the atmosphere, the quest, everything is perfection. Giving the player the choice to either rescue or harvest little sisters was a super big deal at the time. Mechanically, there isn't much gameplay impact. You can either harvest a little more Atom now or rescue them, get the Atom later in the form of a gift, and get access to free tonics. It really kind of balances out. You end up making a little less Atom if you rescue them, but not in a way that's super consequential to your overall gameplay. At the end of the day, you gain power at generally the same rate regardless of what you choose, but the choice is mostly there to inform the ending of the game. There are 6 different endings, but honestly, don't harvest the little sisters. It's creepy, it's weird. There's really just one ending. I only have one genuine criticism. Dear Lord, the hacking in this game is terrible. It's not only terrible, but you have to do it constantly. It becomes a real drain on the tempo of the game. And I know I'm stating the obvious here. It was changed in the sequel. It wasn't even brought back at all for Infinite, but it's worth noting that if you want to jump into BioShock now in 2025, it's, that's something that's going to be annoying. But even as frustrating as it is, it only drops the game from like a 10 to like a 9.9. This is still a masterpiece. It's been almost 20 years and this game still looks great. It's a great example of why strong design will always outlast graphical fidelity. Absolute masterclass in game design and storytelling. There's only one game that I think is better, and anyone who's played the entire franchise probably saw this coming. BioShock 2, Minerva's Den. This was the second DLC for BioShock 2, and it totally went under the radar in 2010. It's a tight, self-contained story set in a new, unexplored section of Rapture. It's relatively short. You can beat it in about 3 hours. Like the main campaign, you play as a prototype Big Daddy, but this time, you're Subject Sigma. Guided on your mission by a mathematician named Porter, you head into Minerva's Den to retrieve the programming code for the Thinker. In a weird way, the story feels even more relevant today. It's slightly less science fiction than when it was released released, Minerva's Den is BioShock at its best. It has the combat improvements brought to the franchise in BioShock 2, absolutely impeccable level design, fantastic voice performances, and a new plasmid. You can throw a gravity bomb. How cool is that? The weapons are super satisfying, most of which are coming over from the main game, but they do give you a hit scan laser rifle. It's super cool and it's really powerful, but it will never, ever top the rocket harpoon because goofy physics are always amusing. There are also a few new enemy types that mix up the formula. Nothing insanely original, but enough to make the fighting feel fresh, especially if you're playing this directly after beating the main game. I refuse to ruin the story for you, but it's easily one of the most moving and emotional experiences you can have while gaming, bar none. Porter is an outstanding character, and the ending literally made me cry. I recently replayed it for the purposes of making this video, and it still hits you in the feels. It's so powerful. It's peak BioShock and easily should be considered one of the best DLCs ever released. For all my Fallout fans out there, Minerva's Den is as good as Old World Blues and Dead Money for Fallout New Vegas. That's the level of quality we're talking about here. I know it's a bold statement, but I firmly stand behind it. Minerva's Den is the best the BioShock franchise has to offer. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Which game is your favorite, by the way? I love reading the comments and chatting. It's the best part of making videos, and I really want to hear your opinion. Also, if you like this and want to see more BioShock content, let me know. These ranking videos barely scratch the surface of each game, and I have so many more thoughts to share if you're interested in hearing my rambling. But thanks again for hanging out. I hope you have an awesome day, and we'll talk again really, really, really soon.